Let me tell you something that might shake you a little. The guilt you feel for choosing yourself was never yours to carry. For years, maybe decades, you've been taught that putting yourself first is selfish, that if you say no, you're cruel. If you rest, you're lazy. If you heal, you're abandoning someone. And so you stayed. You overgive, you overextend, you overexplain, and then you lie awake at night wondering why you feel so empty. Here's the truth. Guilt is often the alarm system of a life built on other people's expectations. When you begin to heal, when you decide to step out of chaos, out of dysfunction, out of relationships that drain you, people may not clap for you. They may question you. They may even shame you. And that shame seeps into your bones. It whispers, who do you think you are? But choosing yourself is not betrayal. It is survival. You are not responsible for setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm. You are not obligated to bleed just because someone else is uncomfortable. Healing requires boundaries. Boundaries require courage, and courage often feels like guilt in the beginning. So if your chest feels tight when you say, I need space, if your stomach drops when you decide to rest instead of rescue pause, breathe. That discomfort, that's not selfishness. That's growth beginning to stretch muscles you were never allowed to use. You were not born feeling guilty for having needs. Somewhere along the way, you were trained into it. Maybe it started when you were praised for being the strong one, the responsible one, the easy child, the one who never caused trouble. And every time you swallowed your feelings to keep the peace, you were rewarded. Every time you made yourself smaller so others could stay comfortable, you were loved a little louder. So you learned something dangerous. Love must be earned through self-abandonment. You learned that your worth is measured by how much you tolerate, how much you sacrifice, how quietly you suffer. And now, when you try to change that pattern, when you dare to say, this hurts me, or I can't do this anymore, your nervous system panics. Because stepping out of that role feels unsafe. It feels like rejection is coming. It feels like you might lose connection. But listen carefully. The version of you that survives by shrinking is not the version of you that heals. Healing means unlearning. It means noticing the reflex to apologize for existing. It means catching yourself before you say, it's fine when it's absolutely not fine. It means tolerating the discomfort of disappointing someone in order to stop disappointing yourself. And yes, that will feel foreign. It may even feel cruel, but is not cruel to refuse to carry what was never yours. You were conditioned to shrink. Now you are allowed to expand. When you start healing, it can feel like you're betraying the people you love. You pull back. You set limits. You stop answering every late night crisis call. You stop fixing what you didn't break. And suddenly, the dynamic shifts. People who were comfortable with the old, you may become confused or angry. And that's when the guilt hits hardest, because part of you whispers, they were there for me. Or what if I'm being too harsh? Or even maybe I'm overreacting. But healing disrupts systems that relied on your silence. If you were the peacemaker, peace will feel threatened when you stop over-functioning. If you were the emotional caretaker, people may feel abandoned when you stop carrying their feelings for them. Not because you're wrong, but because the balance has changed. Growth exposes the fragility of relationships built on imbalance. And here's the hard truth: some connections only worked because you were overextending yourself. When you choose yourself, you're not betraying anyone. You're refusing to betray your own nervous system any longer. You're refusing to keep absorbing what breaks you just to keep things looking stable. Yes, it may hurt. Yes, you may grieve the old version of the relationship, but betrayal would be staying in a cycle that slowly erodes your spirit. Healing doesn't destroy healthy love. It only threatens what was never sustainable to begin with. Let's talk about that word, selfish. It has been used like a weapon, hasn't it? The moment you choose rest over rescuing, silence over explaining, boundaries over bending, someone says it, or worse, you say it to yourself. Am I being selfish? But here's the uncomfortable truth. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries will almost always resist your growth. When you stop over-giving, it exposes who was overtaking. When you stop saying yes, it reveals who expected access without accountability. And instead of examining that imbalance, it's easier for them to label you selfish. And because you are empathetic, because you care deeply, because you don't want to hurt anyone, that label pierces you. But selfishness is not the same as self-respect. Selfishness says, only I matter. Healing says, I matter too. There is a profound difference. You can love people and still say no. You can care deeply and still create distance. You can forgive and still refuse to re-enter what harmed you. That is not cruelty. That is clarity. If someone is uncomfortable because you stopped abandoning yourself, that discomfort belongs to them, not you. Choosing yourself does not make you heartless. It makes you whole. And wholeness can feel threatening to people who were used to your fragmentation. Let me say something that may land deep in your body. Your nervous system was never designed to be a battlefield for other people's comfort. When you constantly override your needs, your body keeps the score. Tight shoulders, exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix, anxiety that hums beneath everything. That's not weakness. That's a system that has been running on survival for too long. Every time you say yes when you mean no, your body flinches. Every time you stay silent to avoid conflict, your heart rate spikes. Every time you minimize your pain so someone else doesn't feel guilty, your nervous system absorbs the impact. And then you wonder why you feel burned out, resentful, numb. Healing is not just emotional, it's biological. When you choose yourself, you're telling your body, you are safe now. When you set a boundary, your nervous system slowly learns it doesn't have to brace for impact all the time. When you rest without apologizing, your body begins to trust you. That trust is sacred. You are not meant to live in constant hypervigilance. You are not meant to carry everyone's chaos in your chest. Your body is not a dumping ground for unresolved emotions that were never yours. Choosing yourself is not indulgence. It is regulation. It is repair. It is teaching your body that love does not require self-destruction. And that kind of healing changes everything. Here's the part people don't warn you about. Choosing yourself comes with grief. Not just the grief of losing certain relationships, but the grief of realizing how long you lived without protecting yourself. The grief of seeing how much you tolerated. The grief of recognizing the version of you that thought pain was normal. That realization can hit like a wave. You might feel anger. Deep, shaking anger. Not just at others, but at yourself. Why didn't I leave sooner? Why did I accept that? And underneath that anger is heartbreak. Because you were doing the best you could with what you knew at the time. Healing shines a light on what you once survived in the dark. And when the light turns on, you see everything. You see the patterns, the red flags, the moments you silenced your intuition. And you mourn the years spent trying to earn love that should have been freely given. But grief is not proof that you made the wrong choice. It's proof that you're waking up. You're grieving the fantasy of what you hoped it would become. You're grieving the role you played. You're grieving the comfort of familiarity, even when that familiarity was hurting you. Growth often feels like loss before it feels like freedom. So if you feel heavy right now, don't mistake that weight for guilt. It might just be grief. And grief is part of becoming whole again. This is hard to hear, but sometimes the guilt you feel isn't about doing something wrong. It's about growing. When you begin to heal, your standards change. Your tolerance shifts. Conversations that once felt normal now feel draining. Dynamics you once accepted now feel suffocating. And suddenly, you're not the same person anymore. And not everyone will grow with you. Outgrowing someone doesn't make you arrogant. It doesn't make you ungrateful. It doesn't erase the love that once existed. It simply means your nervous system, your values, your self-respect have evolved. But here's why it hurts. Humans are wired for connection. So when growth threatens connection, your brain interprets it as danger. It whispers, stay the same, don't rock the boat, don't risk losing them. Yet staying the same to preserve a relationship that requires you to shrink is a slow form of self-abandonment. You are allowed to evolve beyond environments that only knew the smaller version of you. Some people loved who you were when you overextended, overexplained, overgave. They may not recognize this steadier, quieter, boundary-setting version of you. And that's okay. Growth will feel like rejection to those who benefited from your lack of it. But maturity means accepting that not every relationship is meant to survive your healing. You can appreciate what was and still release what no longer fits. Outgrowing is not betrayal, it's alignment. Let's redefine something right now. Boundaries are not walls. They are not punishments. They are not silent treatments wrapped in righteousness. Boundaries are clarity. When you say, I can't talk about this right now, you're not rejecting someone. You're honoring your capacity. When you say, that doesn't work for me, you're not attacking. You're aligning. When you walk away from repeated disrespect, you're not being dramatic, you're being decisive. But here's why it feels so uncomfortable. If you were raised to equate love with self-sacrifice, boundaries will feel like abandonment. Your body may tremble, your voice may shake. You may rehearse the conversation 100 times before you speak. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It means it's new. Healthy love does not require access without accountability. It does not demand that you silence yourself to maintain harmony. It does not thrive on your exhaustion. Boundaries teach people how to be in relationship with you. They say, this is how you can love me well. They say, this is where I end and you begin. They create space where resentment used to grow. Without boundaries, love turns into obligation. With boundaries, love becomes a choice, and chosen love is far more powerful than forced loyalty. You are not pushing people away when you set limits. You are inviting them into a healthier way of loving you. There will come a quiet, powerful moment in your healing when you notice something subtle but life-changing. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You stop saying sorry before you even speak. You stop over-explaining your decisions. You stop cushioning every boundary with guilt. And at first, it will feel terrifying. Because for so long, your safety depended on being agreeable, on being accommodating, on being the one who made everything smoother, softer, easier for everyone else. You learned to anticipate needs before they were spoken. You learned to manage emotions that were never yours to regulate. But here's the truth. Constantly apologizing for your needs teaches people that your needs are optional. When you choose yourself, you begin to understand something radical. Your existence does not require justification. You don't need a dramatic story to validate your exhaustion. You don't need visible scars to legitimize your pain. You don't need unanimous approval to honor your intuition. There is strength in saying, this is what I need, and letting that be enough. Some people may call it cold. Some may say you've changed. And you've changed from someone who begged for permission to someone who grants it to themselves. And that shift from seeking approval to standing in self-trust is not arrogance. It's adulthood. It's integrity. It's healing in its most powerful form. Here's the final undeniable truth. Choosing yourself is not just self-care. It is courage. It takes bravery to step into your own life when every voice around you, and sometimes inside you, whispers you shouldn't. It takes courage to say no, to walk away, to grieve, to grow. It takes courage to trust that your body, your heart, and your mind deserve safety, respect, and love. And here's the miracle. The more you choose yourself, the less guilt has power over you. The more you honor your needs, the clearer your relationships become. The more you step fully into your healing, the more your life fills with people, places, and experiences that actually reflect your worth. You may still feel discomfort. You may still wrestle with old conditioning. But every time you say, I choose me, you reclaim a piece of your soul that was always yours. Healing is not neat. It's not polite. It's not always easy. But it is revolutionary. It is the quiet rebellion against a world that once demanded your invisibility. It is the fierce, uncompromising act of declaring I matter. So let the guilt fall away. Let the shame dissolve. Let the fear of what others think fade into the background. Stand tall in your boundaries, honor your grief, Trust your growth and protect your nervous system. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It is sacred. And it is the bravest thing you will ever do. You are not betraying anyone. You are becoming whole. You are becoming you.